Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Brev. Welcome to another MLB The Show 22 video. Got a new one for you guys today. Gonna be doing something a little bit different, but that I'm hoping to keep going throughout the year as we move forward. So I posted this tweet basically asking people to drop their teams, what positions they're looking to upgrade, and how many stubs they're working with in their budget. And I'm gonna be giving my best advice on how to improve your guys' squads. Alright, kicking it off with a Semigod Squad. Dimmer said he likes his team at the moment, wouldn't mind another legend viable lefty in the lineup, not named Mauer. Would love some criticism on my batting order construction. So we got Trout in center, Clemente in right, or Clemente in left, Mookie in right. I'm assuming Mookie's at least parallel one, which is why he's in right. If he's not for some reason, then you should flip-flop those. Otherwise, looking good. In the infield, we got a Cap at catcher, Utley at second. The corner is Brett and Thomas, and then Peraza at shortstop. And the bench is Bichette, Foscue, Polanco, Ruth, and Delgado. So first off, I would get Bichette off your bench. You can get Castellanos, who's like basically a direct upgrade. This guy didn't say how many stubs he's working with. It would cost about 60k right now. So whether or not you want to spend 60k on a bench bat at this point, up to you. But judging by the cards that you have, I think you'll be fine. Otherwise, the bench actually looks pretty solid. But yeah, let's take a look at the lineup construction, because that's what he said he is wanting help with the most. So 2 lefties, 1 switch, 5 righties is what we're looking at. And judging by your lineup, honestly, I don't know that there is a legend viable lefty that you can insert into this lineup. It looks like you really want to stick with Utley. Maybe you could fit like someone like Ruth in the outfield and move Mookie to second base, but that would just be trading a lefty for a lefty because you'd be rotating Utley out. So I think, you know, it's going to be tough to fit one in unless you bench someone like Clemente or Thomas, which is probably not going to happen. So given the lack of lefties in this lineup and the fact that you only have 1 switch hitter who's kind of hard to fit in to make the handedness correct, I would actually lead off your ball player. So I'd bat your ball player number 1 in this lineup, and then I'd actually just flip-flop Clemente in your ball player. So Clemente would hit second, and then Brett third, Thomas fourth would be great. I would leave Mookie fifth, and then I would flip-flop Trout and Utley. So Utley would bat 6th, Trout would bat 7th, and then Peraza 8th. So the ideal lineup would be ball player, then Clemente, then Brett, Thomas, Mookie, then Utley, Trout, Peraza. And that way your handedness is looking like switch right, left, left, right. Could maybe use the ball player to split up the righties a bit lower in the order, but I don't know if you want to bat them that low, and typically caps have like balanced stats, so I don't even know how much it would help. But yeah, I hope that helps, Dimmer. Alright, this one's a fun one. This guy is rocking with still quite a few face of the franchise cards in this starting lineup. Kind of a bit of a budget lineup. He says he's looking to change Buxton, maybe Story and Real Muto. Budget is 200k, but he's really trying to save for Randy. So yeah, I would definitely start upgrading some of these face of the franchise cards, especially a card like Haniger and Real Muto. Very much cycled out at this point. You'd have to be absolutely crushing it to keep those guys in the lineup. Kind of an easy suggestion, but I would definitely look at some of the Future Stars cards that are in the program. They're all right around quick sell value right now, right around 10k for pretty much anyone that you want from that program. All 95 overall, and even though you're saving for Randy, they're risk-free investments because, like I said, they're selling at quick sell value. So if you don't like them, or if you just need stubs later, you can just sell them back. So center field to replace Buxton, you could look at someone like Austin Martin. At shortstop, you could look at someone like Oswald Peraza. At catcher, there's tons of righty options. Shea Langeliers is my favorite one, but tons of 95 catchers you could put there. And then in left field, another right-handed outfielder, or maybe even another lefty. I haven't looked at your lineup yet. Your lineup in terms of righty-lefty, and assuming you want to keep Brian Reynolds in there, actually looks pretty good. So we would not add another lefty, so I would look for a right-handed Future Stars outfielder to replace Haniger here. So we're looking, just for my suggestions off the top of my head, we're looking at Austin Martin in center, Oswald Peraza at shortstop, and Shea Langeliers at catcher, and then another righty outfielder from Future Stars program. But you could choose whoever you want. I'm just suggesting those cards because they're a quick sell value. As far as lineup construction goes, it actually looks really solid. Only thing I would change is maybe flip-flopping Reynolds and Buxton. And if you don't want to bat Buxton leadoff, you could swap Ramirez and Reynolds. So you could even do something like Ramirez leadoff and then Buxton, and then put Reynolds 5th. And if we're going off the cards I suggested for you to pick up, your lineup would look something like Reynolds, Martin, Rizzo, X, whatever righty outfielder from Face of the Franchise, Ramirez, Peraza, Devers, and then Shea Langeliers. Tons of great lefty first baseman options in the game now too, so I'd maybe try to get Rizzo out of there unless you're really killing it with him. And honestly, I would just flip-flop Rizzo and Devers in general, even if you are killing it with Rizzo. Devers should be hitting higher than 7th, especially considering the power level of the other cards you're using. Rotation and bullpen look really solid. I'm not a huge fan of Musina or Robbie Ray, but if you are, then stick with them. Otherwise, tons of great options from future stars as well that are cheap. Brash, Jobe. You already got Miller. All right, this one's from Trey. Says he's mostly interested in batting order and bench strategy, not attached to any of the future players except Foscue. Really wants to keep Yelly in the lineup, and his budget's about 50K. So first thing jumping off the page at me is Benintendi on the bench. I'm sure you can do a lot better than that. Assuming your Benintendi is not no-sell, you could even dump him for 8K and pick up a future stars guy for 10K. Much better lefty bench bat would be someone like Garrett Mitchell. He can function as a pinch runner as well, since you don't really have anyone with speed on the bench aside from Mays. So that would be my best suggestion on the bench. But the lineup's really interesting. I like that you're sticking with Yelly. And let's take a look at the lineup construction. So we've got Stott, Martin, Ruth, Judge, Devers, Davis, Foscue, and Yelich. So right away, I notice you have Aaron Judge hitting cleanup sandwich between two lefties. He's kind of a tough one with his splits because he's not really a lefty killer. In fact, hitting against lefties is his weaker side. So he really needs to be around other lefties that are pretty good against lefties, because he's not great protection for someone who isn't great against lefties, someone like Devers, for example. So we'll try to move him around, find the best spot for him. And I noticed that you have Henry Davis and Foscue hitting back-to-back as righties, and you mentioned Yelly having speed in the 8-hole, so maybe that's why you're doing it, so Yelich can have the speed in the 8-hole, but I would rather keep the righty-lefty balance, so we'll probably flip-flop that as well. So I think Judge after Ruth is pretty strong, because Ruth can hold his own versus lefties very well. Statistically, much better than Devers. So I'm thinking we move Devers up to 3, and then we move one of either Davis or Foscue into the cleanup spot. For me, that would be Foscue, so that's what I'm just going to want to roll with. If it's Davis for you, then just keep that in mind. And then after Foscue, we would then go Ruth 5th, and then Judge 6th, and then we'd actually go Yelich 7th. And what that does is it has Judge. You're still keeping righty-lefty alternating, but it keeps Judge between Ruth and Yelich, who are both very good at hitting lefties despite being left-handed. You don't really want Judge between someone like Stott or around someone like Devers, just because there's a much bigger drop-off. You'd rather have your pure righties sandwiched between those type of lefties so that your opponent gets punished more if they were to bring a left-handed pitcher in. So my best constructed lineup would be Stott, Martin, Devers, Foscue, and then 5th we'd have Ruth, and then Judge, and then Yelich, and then Davis hitting 8th. I would also maybe try to get a right-handed infielder on your bench and swap for either one of Cruz or Mays, just because you are starting Bryson Stott at shortstop. My best suggestion for a bench bat for you would actually be Liover Peguero. He can play shortstop and is very strongly statted against left-handed pitching. I just don't want you to end up in a spot where you feel like you have to hit lefty-lefty late in a game with Bryson Stott. You can fix this by putting someone like Peguero on the bench, and then late game, if you end up lefty-lefty, you at least have the ability to make the adjustment. And Peguero is just a good bench bat in general, plays great positions. Good speed and very good versus one side. Alright, on to W3, who just said he mostly wants help with righty relievers. I can see why. You know, you got Michael King and Houston Street in there, who I'm not a huge fan of personally. If you want to go all out and spend 40K, I do think Gossage is the best righty reliever in the game, so that may be worth it, but it depends on what you're willing to spend. He didn't put any information on his stub count here. But for more budget options, I would look at maybe Steve Cishek to replace Houston Street, and then maybe the new 93 Gagne to replace Michael King, who's super cheap. Also still really like 85 Adam Ottavino, and I think he would be a nice mix-up for your pitch repertoires that you have from the right side in your bullpen, and obviously he's super cheap at this point as well, so that's some options for you. Here's a fun one. Shout out to the official MLB gaming page for commenting with their God Squad and looking for help. Not much to say about the lineup, pretty much a God Squad as is expected. I didn't see how you're ordering it either, but should be pretty easy, mostly alternating righty-lefty. lefty here. There's a good balance throughout this lineup. No switch hitter on the bench, I think, is definitely an issue, so I would try to get somebody out of there so you can add a switch hitter. I really like Eduardo Escobar for that spot right now, especially since you're already starting Cattell. I also personally prefer a little bit more speed from my pinch hitters. You know, I don't typically use Jock or Cruz very often on the bench. I know people love them, so if you love them, stick with that, but I would be looking more so towards someone who has a bit more speed, but that's just preference. I'd personally probably run Castellanos on the bench over Cruz, for example, but it's all preference. Also, I know Troy Glaus crushes lefties, but personally with the lineup that you have structured, I would consider someone like Jimmy Fox instead. Fox is super strong for a team that runs Mauer and some lefty corner infielders. Fox can play catcher and third base, so he gives you some late game options for both Mauer and Devers. I know there's a both God Squad card, so it's kind of hard to take him out, but I always like having the option of, if it came down to it, one at bat to win the game, I'm not forced to hit lefty-lefty with Mauer, for example. If I have Jimmy Fox on the bench, I have that option at the end of the day, so I like doing that. Rotation looks insanely good, of course. Only thing I would say is get Gossage in the bullpen. Again, I think he's the best righty reliever right now. I'd probably replace Clay Holmes, but just pick whatever righty you feel you're doing the worst with. Thanks for commenting, MLB Gaming. Big shout out there. Appreciate you. All right, we're going to have fun with this one. This is from MLB 22 Stan. He says, this is my no money spent squad. Not sure where to upgrade other than maybe replacing Glavine, Wagner, or Brash. Curious if you'd order the lineup different. I took a look at this for a pretty long time, and I think we can do a lot of work with the lineup construction, so this is going to be a fun one. First off, as far as selling Glavine, Wagner, or Brash, I think Glavine and Brash are some of the best pitchers in the game, so I would stick to that in your rotation. Having Glavine next to Maddox is pretty cool, aesthetically too. Look at those pictures, that's pretty awesome. I personally would get Wagner out of the bullpen. I notice your other two lefties are Chapman and Britton as well, which means all of your lefties are hard throwing, so I personally would try to get a finesse lefty in there. The best ones you can go with there to replace Billy Wagner would be John Franco or Aaron Loop. And now let's take a look at the lineup construction. So there's a lot going on with this lineup, and I think we can doctor it quite a bit to make it better. First things first, having Mauer leadoff is fine. I think that's a fine leadoff, especially if you're just looking for high contact and high likelihood to get on base. But having Mauer sandwiched between, or having Marte sandwiched between Mauer and Devers is not great. You prefer someone that has more extreme splits to hit lefties better, sandwiched between those two guys specifically, since they both have huge power drop-offs against lefties. So this is something we kind of talked about with a team earlier. But when you have kind of more extreme lefties like Mauer and Devers as far as their splits go, you'd much rather have someone sandwiched between them that crushes lefties, so that your opponent is much more punished if they want to throw a lefty. Because as it stands right now, if your opponent threw a lefty at your 1, 2, 3 hitters, they're not getting punished a whole lot because Marte has even splits and is a switch hitter anyway. So they're not really losing anything by throwing a lefty, and so they basically get a freebie to just coast through the top third of your lineup with a left-handed pitcher. So first things first, I would bat Ketel Marte leadoff. Having a switch hitter in your leadoff spot is super strong. Marte's got great contact and pretty decent speed as well, so great leadoff hitter. And moving the switch to leadoff gives you a ton of options with your pinch hitting as well. Makes you a bit more unpredictable when the person after your pinch hitter is a switch hitter. Makes it a little bit harder for them to make bullpen decisions late. So that's the first thing I would do, is move Marte to the leadoff spot. I initially had Toglia batting 8th in this lineup as well, because I really love having two switch hitters that bat 1st and 8th, but the way your lineup's constructed, you have so many lefties that unfortunately we're going to have to use Toglia as a pseudo righty just to kind of split up the lefties. If we went 1st and 8th with our switch hitters, there's just too many lefties in a row the way this is set up, since you only have two pure righties. So we will figure that out as we go. Assuming you want the guys that are hitting high to stay high, here's how we would structure it. We'd have Marte leadoff, then we'd move Mauer to the 2-hole, and then we want a pure righty between Mauer and Devers for the reasons that we mentioned earlier. So that's going to be Soriano or Foscue. It's preference. They're both pretty good at what they do, splitting up the lefties. For me, I would bat Soriano in the 3-hole, but it's up to you. But very important that we have a pure righty between Mauer and Devers, so that they get punished a little more if they want to throw a lefty at us in that part of the lineup. So right now our lineup's looking like Marte, then Mauer, and then Soriano, and then Devers fourth. My first instinct as well with the rest of the lineup was to go Foscue, then Beatty, and then Ruth, but that would have Ruth hitting 7th in this lineup, which I think is a bit too low, a bit disrespectful for Ruth, so we probably want Foscue after Devers for sure. Just so Devers, around Devers we have Soriano and Foscue, so that Devers is our most protected guy, since he obviously has an extreme power drop off versus left. So I'd go Foscue 5th, and then I'd go Ruth 6th, and that would leave Toglia as a pseudo righty 7th, and then that would leave Beatty hitting 8th. A little bit scuffed at the bottom of the order because you have left switch left, and Beatty's not great against lefties, so they could throw a lefty against you there as well, but luckily Ruth hits lefties super well, so maybe that can accent it, and then you can really mess with your bench. I would definitely have someone that you could bring in late for Beatty from the right side. It looks like you have Rice on the bench, so that could definitely work, but if they do want to bring in a lefty against Ruth, you're not going to take Ruth out in the 6th hole, so you could look at a righty for your first baseman or your left fielder, considering Toglia is a switch hitter that hits lefties better. Probably don't want to take Toglia out in that situation either, so that just leaves Beatty for the potential right-handed bat off the bench. So if Rice is your guy, Rice is your guy. He works great for that. Also wouldn't platoon them. I would keep the lineup as is. So the final lineup I would have would be Marte first, then Mauer, and then Soriano, and then Devers, then Foscue, Ruth, Toglia, and Beatty hitting 8th. Also on the bench, again, I would suggest Jimmy Fox. He's basically a direct upgrade to Jake Burger here. I don't know how well you're doing with Jake Burger, but Fox plays all the same positions plus catcher. And again, we're in the Mauer situation where we really don't want to hit left on left if the game's on the line, so that gives you some more options. I'm also not sure if you're ever taking Ruth out, so maybe you don't need a first baseman righty. Maybe you could go with someone like with more pure stats, I guess, someone like Castellanos, but yeah, that's my overall suggestion for this team. I hope that helped. Alright, here's a super quick one. Picture's a little fuzzy, so I apologize for that, but he says he's got 350k, looking to spend about 200k, and he wants to upgrade pitching and catcher. Honestly, pitching looked pretty good. Starting rotation is all guys that I have rated pretty highly, but 200k upgrading your catcher, definitely would just go get Mauer to replace Adley. I notice how your lineup is constructed too. Adley's already sandwiched between two righties that crush lefties, so Mauer would literally just fit perfectly here in the 7 hole if you wanted to keep your lineup exactly the same, so go get Mauer. Alright, next is Josh. Just a couple quick things with this lineup that I noticed immediately. You got Toglia and Ruth in the corners. Ruth is actually a primary right fielder, and you're actually dropping a shield by playing him in left instead of right, so I would flip-flop these. I'd actually have Toglia in left and Ruth in right. That way Ruth keeps his silver shield in the outfield. I would also try to get another pure righty on the bench. I know you have Pujols and Castellanos for your righties, but Pujols kind of has reverse splits, so I'd maybe look to replace, I don't know, Brujan with a more pure righty, and you can kind of use Pujols as your switch hitter instead of Brujan. I would look for an infielder righty, maybe someone like Figueroa again. But honestly, with the way your lineup is looking, there's not a lot of weaknesses as far as like splits go, so maybe you don't make a ton of late game pinch hits. So in that case, you could maybe go with a more pure stat stick righty like Nelson Cruz, for example. In the rotation, he said he's looking to improve pitching with 185k. We got to get Blake Walston out of there. What are we doing here, man? This dude better have a 1 ERA for you through like 10 starts. Get Walston out of there. If you've got 185k, I would maybe splurge on someone like Glavine, even if you want to keep a lefty. Brash is always an option. Or you could just wait and use the new Chris Sale here for free. That might be a great option. I personally like Devin Williams better than both these guys, but honestly, this bullpen's pretty fine. Alright, and this is going to be the last one for the video. We've got Limitless. He has this lineup that you're looking at here. He's got Marte in center, Justice in right, Beatty in left, and then Cap playing second. Limitless loves his switch hitters. There is 6 of them in the lineup. First off, on the bench, I noticed Kyle Farmer here. I think Jimmy Fox is just a better version of Kyle Farmer. If you want the righty with the positions with catcher and everything, I would probably go Fox here instead. I also noticed you've got 3 lefties and no switch hitter. I don't know how attached you are to Kenny Lofton, but I would probably go someone like Vidal Brujan here. Same deal on the bench, you know, a great speed guy, pinch runner if you need him, but Brujan also switch hits, so I think that's a direct upgrade as well. I also noticed that despite the fact you're running 6 switch hitters, a lot of them hit righties better than lefties, so it may be good for you to put a couple, 1 or 2 pure righties in your lineup somewhere, because if you look at Polanco, Ramirez, Bell, they all hit righties better, so this lineup is actually super weak against left-handed pitching, so I would try to make an adjustment there probably. Great switch hitter who is actually better against lefties is, again, Eduardo Escobar, so that's where I'd start if you wanted to keep the switch hitting even. Didn't show me the lineup structure either, so I can't give any advice there, but just make sure you're looking at the splits of your switch hitters. Rotation looks good. I like all these guys. Bullpen, probably would try to get Dibble out of there. He's a very good gold, but at this point in the year, could probably do better. I would probably try to get Gossage and put him there. That would make this bullpen much better. Alright, and that's going to do it for the video. Appreciate all you guys who commented on this tweet. I'm going to be doing this more throughout the year. Like I said earlier, if I didn't get to you, I'm sorry. There were tons of responses. But for those of you I did respond to, I hope this helps. And for those of you watching this video, I hope it helps with your own lineup construction and roster construction in MLB The Show. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.